Winter Haven, Florida is not known for property crimes. It has a lower rate than the U.S. average. But it's even less known for motor vehicle theft. In the U.S., the rate for motor vehicle theft is 3.19 per 1,000 people. But in Winter Haven, it's only 1.21 per 1,000 people. It's a pretty safe town for cars. But maybe not if your car is a beautiful, deep purple 2023 limited edition Dodge Charger. Better not keep anything too valuable in the cup holder of that car, right? Welcome to Capers and Cocktails, a true crime podcast that doesn't take itself too seriously and gives you something to enjoy while you listen. The following content may be disturbing to some. Discretion is advised. If you're enjoying one of our themed cocktails, ensure you're of legal drinking age and have fun, but drink responsibly. A man in Winter Haven, Florida woke up on April 22nd, 2024 to find that his car had been stolen right out of his driveway in the middle of the night. Inside, in the cup holder, was his most prized possession, his mother's ashes. Larry Carter Jr.'s mom had passed away in March 2019, and Larry very clearly loved his mother very much. He had her near him at all times in his 2023 limited edition Dodge Charger SRT Hellcat Red Eye Jailbreak in the most gorgeous purple color, if I do say so myself. Vinyl stickers on the back windshield of the car said, "In loving memory of Lorena Leonard." He would tell reporters, quote, "It was meant for her. That's the main reason I got that car, because of her, to represent her," end quote. It was a bit of a moving tribute to his mom, pun intended, I guess. Larry said he didn't hear an alarm going off or even the sound of his motor starting up, and he knew he would have heard something like that, even in the middle of the night. And if you know anything about Dodge Chargers, they're definitely loud, so he's probably right. Instead of revving that engine, the clever criminal took the passenger window out of his purple chariot and rolled it out of his neighborhood before starting the engine and driving off with their spoils. Larry, naturally, called the police to report the theft. But before we get to the punchline of this story, and no, it's not done yet, let's drink. The Bittersweet Pineapple Margarita combines two of my favorite things, margaritas and pineapples. And it's some bitterness from the Aperol, because this story does end up having a bit of a bittersweet ending. Just a little reminder that you can find the cocktail and mocktail recipe in the description box every week. And speaking of the description box, you know I like to, you can also find links there to all of my social media accounts, as well as the link to book a live happy hour if you're so inclined. I think you're so inclined. Let's drink to happy hours and to what happens next in our story. The next day, Larry made a shocking discovery hanging out of his mailbox. It was his mother's ashes. Turns out the thief returned the ashes, but not the car. Larry took the ashes out and closed the mailbox with his arm, working to preserve the evidence, saying, quote, "I took my shirt and I closed the lid because I didn't want to put my fingerprints on it," end quote. Then he called police again, hoping they could gather some more evidence and track down the thief. Police did take the bag with the ashes for pictures and DNA processing. Larry would tell reporters, quote, "Good thing they did bring it back, because that car was special for her. So without having her ashes, I felt like I'm a failure," end quote. Poor guy. I really feel for him. I can't imagine anything worse than getting your mom stolen, alive or otherwise. Larry is still holding out hope that he will get his custom car back, but he's relieved to be reunited with his mother's ashes. He believes that whoever returned it still has a good heart. I searched a lot to see if I could find a resolution to this story, because I can't imagine that a car that conspicuous could remain stolen for long, but I really couldn't find anything saying that Larry got his car back. But while this case has a mildly unsatisfying end, I can't leave it here. This isn't the first or the only time that a thief has had a conscience and made some returns. Here's a wild one for you. On February 8th, 2024, thieves broke into the home of a filmmaker in India. They made off with cash, gold, jewelry, and even two of his National Film Awards for his two most famous movies. But a few days later, the awards mysteriously reappeared in a plastic bag outside his gate, along with an apology note. The message, quote, "Sir, forgive us. Your hard work is yours," end quote. In 2019, an armed robber in China held a woman at gunpoint, snatched her purse, and then forced her to check her bank balance at an ATM. But when he saw she had only 2.5 yen, basically nothing, his conscience must have kicked in. Not only did he return her purse, but he also gave back the 1,000 yen, which, to be fair, was just over $100 he had just taken from her. Then, in true criminal with a heart fashion, emphasis on the criminal part, he took off before the police could show up. How about a heist with a dose of regret, literally? In April 2021, a thief in Haryana, India, swiped over 1,700 doses of COVID-19 vaccine from a hospital in Jind. But soon after, reality must have set in because the stolen goods turned up at a tea stall near a police station. The thief left them in a bag, telling the staff it was food for a police officer. Inside was a note that read, quote, "Sorry, I didn't know it was medicine for corona," end quote. Turns out he may have been after remdesivir, a high-demand antiviral, and took the vaccines by mistake. Luckily, the police recovered them and they were still good to use, so at least this crime had a shot at redemption. Sorry. A Boy Scout troop in Montana had their camping gear and trailer worth about $7,000 stolen in January of 2015. But then the thieves had a change of heart. They left a handwritten note on a car windshield in a church parking lot, admitting their guilt and telling Troop 373 where to find their stolen stuff. There may not be a merit badge for returning what you stole, but Scoutmaster Rick Lindum and all of his boys were just glad they did the right thing in the end. And finally, for this thief with a conscience, talk about a long overdue refund. In Barrie, Michigan, a thief who had robbed a store worker back in the 1980s decided to make things right 3 decades later. He sent an anonymous letter confessing to the crime along with $1,200, more than the $800 he originally stole, paying it back with interest. The police tracked down the former employee who confirmed the story. In the letter, the thief apologized for the trouble he caused and said he was trying to make amends for his past mistakes. Guess some guilt just doesn't have an expiration date. And while our Florida thief may not have had a full change of heart, at least they returned the one thing that Larry Carter Jr. couldn't replace. Turns out they aren't the only criminal to have second thoughts. Thanks for hanging out with me. I think maybe the lesson here is that you probably shouldn't steal to begin with. And then you can just avoid the calling out of your guilty conscience because then it won't be, well, guilty of anything. But who am I to say? I didn't get away with a nice sports car only for the cost of returning some ashes. Next week, we're headed to Transylvania University, but there's no vampires, or at least I don't think so. The main idea of next week's novel is novels, books, and the drink, the Transylvania twist, of course. Okay, I promise not to do next week's entire episode in my bad vampire accent. Or do I? I'll see you next week, and remember, there are always alternatives to being a car thief. Ashes or no.